Watch your head.
School.
Yeah, we're going to scoot when we get there. Sorry, Jasper, I can't find that monster truck. I don't know what's happened to it.
It's going to be there.
I'm afraid. Yeah. Sophie's already had a go trying to wake Jasper up while I was getting the parking ticket. Not looking good. Come on, Jazzy. That's it, good boy.
I'm hungry here.
Yeah, we're hungry. We're going to go get some nice food. Been quite a pickle, haven't you, Jasper?
Yeah.
Yes, you have. Jasper's been a right little pickle sticks. So, oh, hello. So I'm taking him to the park, which sounds a bit counterintuitive. Road, not too quickly. That was close. Jasper, not too quickly, please.
Climb.
Yeah, we'll be at the climbing frames in a minute. Oh dear! You're running out of energy, aren't you? I can tell. But handily enough, this is a really nice little cruisy bit. In 2016, 9 out of the 10 best-selling cars in Norway were electrified. I mean, that does include plug-in hybrids and stuff like that, but even so, very, very impressive. And there's my car. So we'll go this way carefully. Then come on over here then. Just waiting for Soap, she's just grabbing some shopping. So yeah, the kind of thing that makes Norway such a great success is primarily, you know, people follow the money. And that's one of the reasons why diesel was so successful in this country. People worked out it would be about 20% cheaper to do the same number of miles. The cars tended to be a bit more reliable, and in the space of relatively short period of time, everybody bought diesels. Well, I say everybody, 50% of people bought diesels. Obviously there is a bit of a difference between diesels and EVs in that ultimately there was no real difference between driving a diesel or a petrol. You just used a different nozzle. Whereas with EVs there is a bit of a mindset change, which explains why the uptake hasn't been quite as quick, even though EVs are substantially cheaper per mile. The other thing to remember is there are nothing like as many EVs out there, and at the moment they really usually don't even have a comparable use case. They can't do the miles that they need to. And I'm not talking about 500 miles, I mean seriously. I know there are people that like to do 500 miles in one journey without stopping, but the vast majority of the time, and I do mean the absolute vast majority of the time, people don't do that. Apart from anything, you can barely do 500 miles in this country without stopping, because you run into an ocean. That represents like 8 hours without going to the loo. That's like an entire day, waking up in the morning and then not going to the loo the entire time you're at work. Kind of a bit unusual, you know? And if you've got high powered charging whilst you're having your 5-minute comfort stop, then
I think I have good sweet riding at home.
of course there are other incentives that Norway use which have got nothing to do with actually making the vehicles cheaper. Things like being able to use bus lanes, priority parking, charging, free charging when parked, all these sort of things, exemption from a congestion charge. That's something that London does. Yeah, there are loads of perks, and the more you sell it on the perks, the more people will go for it, which is why governments have such a big part to play in the adoption curve of EVs, because they can speed that up. One of the reasons why I was so disappointed with the Ecotricity £6 for 30 minutes thing, which was just not cheap enough. It certainly was better than £5 for 20 minutes. Wow. But even so, 6 for 30 is still, I think, a bit too expensive, because it's basically the same price as diesel on a per mile basis.
My mama.
Oh good, Jasper can see mummy on the way. Where is mummy?
Look. Hey.
He's your son.
I like his pointed finger though.
Her son. Incentives. Definitely that is a key part of what makes people, well, it's not really, basically, there's got to be an advantage. People aren't going to do it just because, you know, well, hey, whatever. And until you've driven an EV, you don't know that it's actually going to be that much better than anything else. Jasper, come on! Come on, Jasper! Come on, Jasper, it's time to go in, monkey. Yeah, gotta say, I would quite love it if the neighbours had moved those dirty old slides that come from the back of their garden. But Jasper had hidden the monster truck inside the seat of his tractor. So the question is, what incentives would I like to see the British government bring in? Well, I tell you what I don't want to see them bring in. I am not a big fan at all of the new vehicle, is it the vehicle excise duty? The road tax. It's changing in April, and the first year is going to be sort of quite heavily driven by the CO2 emissions of the vehicle, and then there's kind of a flat fee after that unless you've got a completely zero emission vehicle. So beyond that first year, there's no incentive to have a cleaner vehicle. The congestion charge is quite a good perk for sort of small city EVs. Now, traffic in London is absolute chaos. It's gridlock most of the time. So I think allowing EVs into bus lanes would make a really big difference. You'd have to make it completely just zero emissions vehicles, otherwise you'd be inundated with Toyota Priuses. So I do think the bus lane thing is a really good idea. I like the way that you get free parking and charging in Westminster. Well, I don't know about the free charging anymore actually, but you certainly get free parking within the city of Westminster, which is, for those of you that don't know, right in the middle of London. That is really handy actually. The only slight annoyance is that Source London now charge a flat fee per month, so unless you're going to be a regular user of that, isn't really worth it. I think ultimately roads are going to be priced per mile, and you can still incentivize the more environmentally friendly vehicles, you just make them pay slightly less. I think that's how it's going to wind up going, and I think that's probably the fairest way to do it, especially when you consider that for most people who buy an EV, they quickly realize that they do as much as 50% more miles than they used to, because they're just freed from that per mile cost of having to put fuel in the tank. Certainly that was the case for me. I did about 12,000 miles a year when I had a 306 Peugeot. That was a petrol car, so I had to put fuel in that. Then I moved to a Nissan Leaf and the mileage went up to about 17,000 a year. Then I moved to a Tesla Model S, which freed me from the range issues of the Leaf. And now I find myself doing 25,000 miles a year, because there's just no incentive to not do the miles. Certainly the way that it's been going in America, where you've been having a lot of states which are basically pushed into an EV registration fee, effectively, a sort of an annual fee that you have to pay in order to have an EV in that state. And it can be $100 or it could be as much as $300 a year. And that's not a fee that you have to pay at all if you have a petrol or diesel car. Now the states would say that that's because as an electric vehicle you're not actually contributing any fuel duty, any tax through purchasing fuel, which is true of course. But at the same time, they haven't put the fuel duty up for ages, which is why they don't have the budget necessary to fix their roads. And a less than 1% portion of road users is not going to make up that 60% budget gap by any stretch of the imagination. I have a feeling there's been a little bit of lobbying going on here. You can do incentives the right way or you can do them the wrong way. And if you do them the right way, wow, you can shift some serious numbers of EVs. Now, Norway's a fairly small country, so their impact on global EV manufacture is going to be relatively limited. If these sorts of incentives were mirrored in other countries, then it would be a wholesale stampede towards electric vehicle manufacture, which would be great because what we need is to build loads and loads of really big battery factories really quickly, and then we can move away from petroleum products as being the fundamental energy source for our personal transportation. And I think that would be great. I think the future is bright. future is green, and the future has instant acceleration. I hope you've all enjoyed today's vlog post. If you have, remember to like it, share it, and subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you tomorrow for the next instalment of my daily vlog. Bye. We had quite a bit of trouble with Jasper when we went to the park. I don't know if anyone noticed, but at the beginning half of that bit of video, he was wearing one pair of trousers, and on the way home, he was wearing a different pair of trousers. I'll leave that to your imagination as to what happened in the